The rest stop seemed ordinary, families grabbing snacks, truckers stretching their legs, travelers hurrying in and out. No one noticed the battered pickup parked at the far end of the lot. No one heard the muffled cries coming from its bed. But 3 German shepherds did. Their ears twitched, their eyes locked, and in an instant, their calm stance shifted to razor-sharp focus. These weren't strays. They belonged to a U.S. Marine, a man bound and gagged, silently fighting for his life. With no one else paying attention, he gave a subtle, hidden signal only his dogs would understand. What happened next stunned the entire crowd and later made headlines across the nation. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The highway rest stop buzzed with its usual rhythm. Families shuffled inside the convenience store, children clutched candy bars, and truckers leaned against their rigs sipping hot coffee. On the surface, everything looked perfectly ordinary, just another pit stop along a long stretch of desert road. But hidden in plain sight was something no one noticed, something that would later shock everyone. At the far end of the lot, a battered white pickup truck sat parked under the blazing sun. Its back window was dusty, and the truck bed looked empty to anyone glancing quickly. To most people, it blended in like any other vehicle in the lot. Yet, 3 German shepherds paced restlessly nearby, their eyes fixed on it with unwavering intensity. Their low growls went unheard by distracted passersby. Their ears twitched, their bodies tense, as though waiting for a command that hadn't yet been given. People walked past without a second thought, assuming the dogs were just restless. But for those who might have looked closer, if anyone had bothered, they would have seen the truth. Inside the truck bed, hidden beneath the shadow of the side rails, a U.S. Marine lay bound, gagged, and silently praying someone would notice. The Marine's vision blurred under the scorching desert sun, sweat stinging his eyes as he struggled against the ropes cutting into his wrists. He had been trained for captivity, taught to survive with nothing but grit and instinct. But here, bound in the back of a pickup truck at a rest stop full of people, he felt a crushing truth. No one noticed him. To the world, he was invisible, but he wasn't entirely alone. Just a few feet away, 3 German shepherds stood like sentinels, scanning every twitch of his body. They weren't random dogs. They were his partners, trained to read the smallest gestures, even ones hidden from human eyes. He flexed his fingers twice, then stilled. To most, it meant nothing. To them, it was everything. The Marine forced himself to stay calm. He shifted slightly, letting his bound wrists lift for just a second before letting them fall. It was subtle, almost invisible, but the dogs saw. Their ears perked, their eyes locked. He gave the tiniest nod, one that could easily be mistaken for weakness. But for the dogs, it was the command they had been waiting for. The signal had been given. The moment the signal was given, the German shepherds transformed. Their restless pacing stopped, replaced by sharp, synchronized focus. As if an invisible thread pulled them together, they leaned forward, muscles coiled like springs. The ordinary rest stop suddenly became their battlefield, though no one else realized it. Yet one dog let out a sharp bark, short, clipped, deliberate. The sound sliced through the chatter of families and the hum of engines. Heads turned, confused, but the dogs weren't looking for an audience. They were moving with purpose, their paws pounding against the asphalt as they charged toward the pickup truck with startling speed. Dust kicked up behind them, a storm of urgency only they understood. Onlookers gasped, stepping back, uncertain whether to intervene or simply watch. The shepherds weren't growling aimlessly. Their movements were precise, trained, honed through countless drills with their Marine. Each bark and lunge wasn't random. It was communication, a code they shared with their handler. A desperate attempt to draw human attention to what lay hidden. One slammed its paws against the truck bed, snarling and clawing at the edge. Another circled to block anyone from interfering, teeth bared, eyes blazing. The third stood rigid, barking furiously at the shadow inside. Confusion rippled through the crowd. Why were these dogs going wild? What had they seen? And then, for the first time, someone noticed the flicker of movement beneath the truck's rails, an arm bound tight, twitching in silent desperation. Panic struck the kidnappers the moment the dogs erupted. One of them, a burly man in a leather jacket, cursed under his breath as the shepherds clawed at the truck. "Get them away," he barked, fumbling with his weapon. But it was too late. The dogs weren't attacking blindly. They were protecting their Marine. The lead shepherd lunged at the side rail, teeth gnashing inches from the man's arm. The crowd gasped, screams breaking out as families scrambled to pull their children closer. For a second, the rest stop turned into chaos. Coffee spilled, car doors slammed, and voices rose in confusion. But through it all, the dogs pressed harder. Their barks like alarms demanding attention. One kidnapper tried to shove the animals back, but the second shepherd cut him off, circling with a growl that forced him to retreat. The third barked furiously, drawing more eyes to the bound figure hidden inside the truck. Whispers spread through the gathering crowd. "There's someone back there. Is he tied up? Call the police." Suddenly, the Marines' captors realized their cover was blown. The once quiet lot was now a storm of witnesses, phones out, dialing authorities. The kidnappers shouted, scrambling to control the situation, but the shepherds wouldn't yield. Every snap of their jaws, every furious bark, tightened the noose around the men's plan. What had begun as a silent captivity had now turned into a spectacle, and the kidnappers knew their time was running out. The first siren wailed in the distance, and the kidnappers froze. Their eyes darted wildly, searching for an escape, but the circle of barking shepherds made every path dangerous. The crowd, once hesitant, began to close in, phones raised, voices shouting, "He's tied up in there. Don't let them run." The kidnappers' plan had crumbled in seconds. One man lunged toward the truck bed, yanking at the tarp to silence the Marine, but a shepherd intercepted, teeth sinking into his sleeve. The attacker screamed, stumbling back as the dog dragged him down. The second captor tried to pull the animal off, but the third shepherd charged, blocking him with a snarl that forced him to retreat. Then, the Marine made his move. With adrenaline surging, he twisted his wrists, the ropes loosening just enough for him to break free. His gag fell, and he shouted with a voice that cut through the chaos, "I'm a U.S. Marine. These men kidnapped me." The crowd erupted, some rushing forward to help, others shielding their families. Police cars screeched into the lot, officers leaping out with weapons drawn. Within moments, the kidnappers were pinned against the asphalt, handcuffs snapping shut. The Marine, freed at last, stumbled from the truck bed, falling to his knees. His dogs immediately surrounded him, pressing their bodies close, tails wagging furiously. Tears blurred his vision as he pulled them close. "You saved me," he whispered, his voice breaking. And in that moment, every witness knew. It was true. The rest stop, once a scene of terror, was now filled with flashing lights and hushed voices. Officers escorted the kidnappers away, their faces pale under the glare of cameras. Reporters rushed in, but the focus wasn't on the criminals. It was on the Marine kneeling between his three loyal shepherds. They pressed against him, tails thumping, their eyes shining with pride. For them, the mission was simple: protect their human at all costs. Later, at the station, the Marine gave his statement, his voice steady but filled with emotion. He credited his survival not to luck, but to the silent bond he shared with his dogs. "They saw what no one else could," he told the officers. "They read my signal when the world ignored me." The room fell quiet, the truth sinking deep. Days later, the story spread beyond the rest stop, capturing hearts across the country. Strangers called them heroes, donations poured into K-9 rescue organizations, and the Marine's loyalty to his companions was celebrated everywhere. Yet for him, it wasn't about recognition. Standing beside his shepherds, he whispered the words only they needed to hear. "I'd never leave you, and you never left me."